to take the information and make really practical use of it. So if you know anyone who really is looking to get involved in non-traditional aspects of agriculture, or who may be tinkling at home, experimenting with things, please share this video, share the link with them so that they can jump on in and get the information. I'm going to be as practical as I can be. And I hope that whatever we do in this very short space of time, that you can actually take something away. So if you do not have a pen, a notepad, a pencil, paper, please go grab one right quick so that you can jot down the information that comes to you. As a part of this process, I'm going to try to spark your creativity. So you're going to need to be writing so that you don't lose your really big $1 million ideas. I'd be very, very sad with you if it comes and goes quickly and you didn't get your pen and paper. And so I'll go right into the crux of the matter. Today we're talking about making products from plants, and it's going to be as short as I can make it. The truth is, it's going to go a little bit more than plants because we're looking at how we're going to take what is occurring in nature and get products out of it. So I'm just going to have the slide change. You can move on to the next slide as I talk. Please forgive any noise you may be hearing. So here's what we're going to be going through in this lesson today. So you're going to have to know your crops. You're going to have to find a need. You're going to develop your product. You're going to go into branding, design, and marketing. You're going to look for a supply chain. You're going to get licensing and certification, and you're going to refine your product before you can start. And this is very important because we don't want that we do what everyone else does, which is good, but may not necessarily be the best, which is to start hot and sweaty and then crash and burn because you didn't pay attention to the things that are important to what you're going to do. So let's move on to the next slide and get right into it. So know your crops. All right. Yeah, so we'll start here. These are a few of my products that you are seeing on the screen. These are all created from plants that I either grew on my farm or in my gardens and are made and designed mostly by me. So here's where it's going to get real inspiring for everyone, I hope. I started off selling my products in regular little see-through plastic bags that you would buy your tamarind ball in with a little piece of paper stuck down inside. And my products grew from that to presentable looking products that can be packaged and sold pretty much anywhere. So what I have here are my two most recent products, which are Red Blend and the 21-Day Cleanse. We have Cerasee capsules and Moringa capsules. We have a bush tea in a bottle, and I have a herbal tea hair rinse. So those are 5, 6 out of about 12 products that I have. So we can move slide on so that we can get into how we can get your ideas to this. So first, let's start off with the basics, the crux of the matter, which is what is it about plants that you need to know? So 5 things that are generally made from plants are food, medicine, fibers, timber, and rubber. Now, if you think about it, when you're thinking about making something from the crops that you're growing, you're naturally first up thinking about either something to eat or something to drink. But it's important to know that there are opportunities for you to kind of take your mind beyond that to see what else could I possibly do. Plants provide us with food, and not just food, with materials for what we want to do, from the grains, the leaves, the shoots, the bark, the root, and the flowers. And so I'm going to let you take a little bit of time to soak that in, because you may be thinking about the berries that are growing on the plant, but you may not be thinking about the usefulness of the leaf, or maybe the bark, or maybe the actual fibers that are inside the stems of those plants or the roots. So now that we've covered that, let's move on to the next slide. So here, maybe you can lose me and bring this up much bigger for the second so that you can see here are 9 plants mostly trees that are used to make fibers. Many of them we may not even consider that those fibers form a very important part of things that we do on a day-to-day basis. So palm trees, hemp trees, jute plants, okra plants, bamboo, banana, um, areca, which is pretty much a coconut trees, and sisal, or what we would call um, what's a new name for sisal now? Um, they make it into alcohol. Yes, they make it into alcohol. But what the world has done is decided that they're not going to just stick with traditional cotton fibers. They're going to use other fibers for things. So if you're checking it out, people are making clothing from hemp. They're making shoes. They're making accessories, wall hangings from these fibers because they're realizing that you can only do so much with one crop if you want to maintain diversity. So imagine we're growing pineapples and just chopping the fruit off, but those 30 leaves have some really strong fibers in there. People are using in Latin America now to make clothing. You can check now on YouTube. Okay, so we can move on to the next slide. Apart from plants, animals produce fibers, but we call them hairs and wool. So there are many animals who produce wool. And just so that we don't forget that maybe we think of woolly sheep as the ones up in northern Europe that blow fluffy like poodles and they shave them off. But rabbits are used for wool as well, and it's amazing the kind of products that are being used. We may not think of it that way, but you may have 40 bunny rabbits which put out maybe a few ounces of fur every couple weeks. But you're never thinking to yourself, well, maybe I could start to make fillings or throw cushions out of my rabbit furs, right? Because who does that? And because you can't think of who does that, it provides you with an opportunity to say, well, for people who don't like using polyester because it's plastic pretty much, I could provide an alternative. So there's one really good idea. And then you can stretch it further and wider. So fur, leather, hairs, silk, teeth, bones, scales, shells are used to make clothing, accessories, shoes, all fancy fittings to put on. I don't know if you ever look in at these really fancy home centers that have lamp shades and lamp bases and they have all kinds of things attached onto them. And you think to yourself, who would import this from halfway around the world? But you know what? Somebody did, and somebody's buying it. And so, the very same way that they can import things like that, we have an opportunity that we can make. So, let's move on to the next slide. And here's where we'll kind of get into the crux of the matter. So, you're growing something in your backyard, or there may be something naturally occurring. One naturally occurring plant in Barbados that we ignore most of the time is, I don't know if they call it raffia here. But I grew up with my grandmother wrapping soaps with raffia, sticking pins inside and making these beautiful little decorations that would actually scent the house, right? But as I got into this particular industry, I realized that raffia is a plant. I always thought that it was probably a plastic or something. And then the raffia is something that grows like a huge aloe vera plant. They're growing all over the country. And there's so many videos on YouTube showing how to actually shave the outer green off, access the fibers, wash it, and then use those fibers to string together to make. It's just absolutely fantastic. So now that we're getting our juices flowing, I just would like for us to move straight into this. So what's a new product process? So you have an idea. Oh, I would like to make juices, which is the default, right? I'd like to make juices. It's mango season, there's aki season, there's guava season, and you're thinking, I'd like to make juices. Oh, but the problem is so many people are making juices. So you pause because you think to yourself, well, what could I add that could make a difference and that people would actually want to buy mine over the established brands that are made by the big companies? And that is the point at which most people stop and never move forward. And I want to encourage you. There would be no Tropicana and all of these brands if someone didn't get up one day and say, you know what, I can make a juice that's just as good as the other one. And we have an issue in the Caribbean where we lack confidence. We are shamefaced. So if we try something and we fail, we think, well, we're no good. And maybe I should just go back working for somebody because my idea didn't pan out. And sometimes it's not that it didn't pan out. Sometimes your idea is before its time. And a lot of people had ideas that were way ahead of their time. Then it could be that you just may have needed some more help along the way. And if you try again, you could do so much better. So there's your idea. You have to evaluate this idea, think it through, and plan it through. For me, a big part of that evaluation is actually trying your very, very best to get into a thought process that is beneficial for yourself. So sometimes you may say, all right, I like applesauce. So I'm going to make applesauce. And that's the first very, very big mistake. You evaluate for yourself, but then you go past evaluating for yourself to ask people, what exactly is it that you like? Or observe people in the supermarket or in the market or in the home goods store or in at the big retail outlets. Watch people. What are they gravitating to? What does it look like? What does it smell like? How many of them are there? What varieties? What are the options? And then you start to form for yourself an idea about where your product could fit in if you decided to do something. Then after you go through that process, then you come up with a concept. For me, I wanted to do herbal tea bags because I am a tea baby and I grew up in an environment where tea was praised for its wonderful benefits. I wanted to do something that I would enjoy. Maybe if I were a coffee lover, I would try something else. But I wanted to do something that I enjoyed. And then I decided I need to do something more than just make teas that I would like. And so my concept was to try my very best to find people who had a problem that I felt like tea would solve. And so I went around to polyclinics and I interviewed as many of the senior citizens as I could. And I asked them, why are you taking this medication? Why are you taking home so much medication? What did your parents and grandparents do? And with the answers to those questions, I realized that most cases, their parents and grandparents turned to what we would call medicinal herbs, what back then they used to call bush. And I decided I'm going to base my products, my first line of products, on the bushes that made our ancestors healthy and strong and also help to heal some of the issues that they would have had. So likewise, you try to solve a problem, which gives your business, your product a purpose. It gives it another reason to exist outside of you just wanting to do something to make money. And because your idea now solves a problem and helps somebody, you have an external motivation to make sure that you get it right. So after that, you come up with a marketing strategy. Where are you going to position this thing if you get it? Do you want to sell it to all the wealthy people? Do you want everybody to be able to access it? Is it something that's going to be very, very special and only come out 3 times a year? And so you're going to price it accordingly. Or maybe you're working full time, you only have a little bit of time to devote to it. So you want to make sure that whatever you do, you have the time to do it well. And once you come up with that marketing strategy, then you're going to move on to something else. And so I want to talk about the production process. So you know what you want it to look like, the actual product. So not necessarily the packaging, because we're not at that point yet. So you're going to make a patty. You got to decide if your patty is going to look like everybody else's, if you're going to come up with a new shape or a new layout or whatever for your patty or for your pie or your muffin or whatever it is you're looking to do. Let's say you want to sell chicken manure as fertilizer for people, but you don't want it to just be big clumps of chicken poop in a bag, right? So you have to decide What is my product going to look like and feel like, smell like, not necessarily taste if it's chicken manure, but you get my point. What's it going to look like? What's the experience for the person going to be? And then afterwards, you look at the packaging and design. So packaging and design comes under branding and marketing. Now, you have to know for yourselves before you spend a cent, is this going to make sense for me? You may look at a variety of things for inspiration. Now, I'm going to show you a few things and you can let me know in the comment section what you think of right away. Okay? So what do you think of when you see this? All right? So you can put in the comment section. What do you think of when you see this? Okay? What do you think of when you see that? What do you think of when you see this? And what about if I added this? Right? Okay. What do you think of when you see this? Now, this is one of my products, so I don't want to show my label. Well, I can. This is tamarind chutney. But you look at this jar, which is a very generic jar we see everywhere. What's the first thing you think of when you see this hex jar? What do you think of when you see this? All right. One more thing. Come quickly. What do you think of when you see this? All right. The truth is, we get triggers. And those things that trigger us usually tend to be the packaging. And so what traps us is sometimes we have a really good idea, but we don't want our stuff to look like other people's things. Like everybody using this bottle, I don't want to use that bottle because my thing is going to be special, etc., etc. And so you delay 6 months, a year and a half, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years on your product because you don't want your bottle to look like other people's bottles. And I want to encourage you, sometimes you have to get past that perfectionist mind and start somewhere, right? So I'm going to challenge you based on all these packagings that I show you. So not think of packaging first, but actually think of the product. Now, one really fun fact, I always wanted to know how different peas grew. So I just got peas from the supermarket and threw a set in my garden. And I was thinking that, like black eyed peas were going to go in this huge bush or whatever. And I laughed so bad to see that the black eyed peas grew just like any other pea in a pod with about 6 or 7 in there. And I thought to myself, gosh, if I want to sell black eyed peas, I have to plant like 6 acres of black eyed peas to get a few bags to sell, right? And the extreme thinking that I went into, if I wanted to sell black eyed peas, I would never get into it because I would think I need to be selling containers, loads of black eyed peas. Instead of saying to myself, well, if I could find 4 families that would buy black eyed peas from me, then it would be worth it to flood my backyard with them because then I know that I am meeting somebody's needs. Again, you're serving people, you're doing something for others. Otherwise, you're going to get caught up on how much money you've made or did not make and how disappointed you are that you didn't get all the cash to buy that fancy new car that you wanted. And so the adjustment in your motivation will help a long way in making the business work, not just for you, but for the people that you're trying to serve. And so start experimenting with your product. Get your family to try it. If your family does not want to try your product, then you do not have a product. Okay? The people that love you and care about you and trust you are the ones who should be the first to say, what was that you put in there? You better don't take that to the public with whatever underlying taste that is. And it could simply have been that you just cut something a little bit too long and it got a burny smell at the bottom, and that burn went right through the entire pot. And so your process now of that product, making the product, becomes more and more important. How much, how long you cook it or prepare it, what ingredients did you add in? Measure them every time because it has to be consistent. Who's your supplier? How consistent are they? Are they people that are going to bring in a shipment this month and then next 3 months they don't have any because they're not reliable? Then you have to make sure whatever you do that you're able to depend on the people who are supplying you. So look for really good supply chain companies that you know will be well stocked or that can stock enough quantities of whatever you need so that you don't run out. Unfortunately, I will say unfortunately, for us, many of us are rebellious and wild and we just carefree. We're just like, oh, I have faith in God and everything is going to work out well. For people who like that who are non-planners, you're going to run into a problem with your business because if people, thanks Allison, if people like your tamarind balls and you make one really good batch and then next week you decide, man, I'm going to add one more teaspoon of clove, cut back on the salt because my salt running out too fast, or maybe I can change the sugar from a nice gooey brown sugar, I'm going to use white sugar instead. Your customers can't trust you to deliver on the taste that they love. And so that is what makes businesses successful. Not just the taste, but the look, the feel, the consistency. If it's gooey from the beginning, you got to keep it gooey. If it's crumbly, crispy, if it cracks, if it crunches when you eat it, all of that has to stay exact the same no matter what. And if you have to change it, you have to let your customers know upfront a change is coming to our product for whatever reason and tell them, listen, we decided that that particular ingredient was not healthy enough. We found something that was better. And we're going to invite you to come try it. And if you like it, great. If you don't, tell us. And we'll be willing to revert because we want to make you happy. We want you to be healthy, but we want to make you happy. And maybe your product won't be something healthy. Maybe it'll be something absolutely out of the ballpark different. But whatever it is, consistency is key. It's the only way to commercialize it. So when the health inspectors come, and I'll get it 427, so I'll move on. When the health inspectors come to your property, let's say you're making food, and they ask you, what are you making? You tell them, well, I'm going to be making cassava bread. And they'll ask you, how do you make this cassava bread? Walk me through the process. You're going to have to stand up and tell the inspector from the top of your head, I peel the cassavas with this kind of knife, wearing gloves. I soak it in water, hot or cold. I bag it and refrigerate it. Then I take it out and blend it or grate it. You have to be so accustomed to your process that you can relate to the health inspectors because it's your process that they're going to look for flaws to say, you know what, you can't be selling nobody no food, honey, because you're going to kill somebody with the process that you have. And so you have to make sure that your process is on point. Now, talking about health inspectors, you will get to the point at which your product is good enough that you can say to yourself, I'm confident to go to the Ministry of Health, get my paperwork, that I can go and get my license, my certifications, so that I can be a business that can say to my prospective customers, to the supermarket, to whoever is going to be buying from you, we're good. We're good. And that confidence takes your mind to another level. When I started Naturindas, yes, I was working from home. I still am, but it was just a side hustle. It was a thing that I was doing. I figured, well, I was so inspired by the entrepreneurial mindsets that I found in Guyanese that I said to myself, these people are inspiring me. They're so innovative and creative. I'm gonna try doing something. And I tried. And it worked. But I didn't feel like it was a business until the health inspector turned up here, with his shoulders out and drilled me and then said, you passed with flying colors. That made me feel like I am now in business, guys. Like, you can't stop me now. And so for your particular process, it may not be food. You may be actually dealing with manure or with sargassum seaweed or something else. But you want to make sure at the end of the day that your process is so on point that you can walk up to a big manufacturer and say, hey, can you manufacture my product for me? They gotta ask you, what do you do? The fact that you can call out your process to them, tells them that you are not just a hustler on the street out there, that you're a person who's interested in being a business person. And so let me give you my final set of points. You can move on to the next slide. Great. Your product has physical and non-physical attributes. Your product actually, you can touch it, you can see it, smell it, taste it, but it also evokes a certain sensation, feeling, sense of happiness, joy, well-being for your customer. And so you have to make sure that whatever you do, that your product makes people feel good to have it. Not that they feel guilty that they didn't take it off the shelf. That meant that you really bombarded them with your advertising, but you really want to make sure that these features that are identified here really make your customer feel as though they're a part of something great, they're supporting something great, or that your product is going to add to the value in their kitchen, their cupboard, their house, whatever it is, right? And let's talk about design and marketing. Now, when you go on Alibaba, AliExpress, all these places, and you see the variety of packaging available up there, you kind of go cuckoo. And you go cuckoo because you want to be a part of that high-end family of products. And it's hilarious sometimes because oftentimes those high-end products that we think of are literally just 4 or 5 ingredients with lots of preservatives and a really fancy bottle. That's what you're paying for. And if that's the market you want to get into, then you have to take time to see how much money those people actually spend to make sure that their brand gets up there and stays up there. And if you know for sure that you are not in that financial bracket as yet, then don't worry about that packaging. Be able to tell your story in such a way that people know they're getting value, good value in the packaging that you have. And when you can afford, then you can improve your packaging. And then you can also do some very creative things. You can create 2 products. Very same ingredients, very same product, but packaged differently. One for a higher end market and one for the mass market. And that way you can test to see which one responds better, which ones move faster. And then you may be surprised to see that the high end market is willing to buy the lower mass produced thing, which packaging was much cheaper, and then you save some money. And so let's move on to the next slide. Yes. So I figure most people will want some product ideas. So let's look at some ideas. All right. So for the most part, people think about juices, bottled juices, natural juices, or drinks. Many people will think, okay, well, maybe I can take the vegetables coming out of my garden, slice them up, put them in a bag, put a label on it, and sell it as mixed veg. If you go in the supermarket, look in those freezers, I'm just blown away that somebody will import chopped up carrots in a bag frozen, right? And people are buying it. And the reason they're buying it is because they want it. And so don't be afraid to say, you know what, I'm on chop up carrots, beets, cauliflower, whatever, and try to make a living off that. Like somebody wants mixed veg, right? Think of your ready done meals, baked goods, spices, or condiments. And we don't normally think of condiments in Barbados. We think of barbecue sauce or something else, but there's so many different condiments out there that you can try your hand at to make people's meals, salads, or whatever taste really good. Clothing, shoes, and accessories. Now, again, we talked about fibers. And you may be the kind of person that's really patient and you tell yourself, I'm going to import a loom. I'm going to weave myself some cotton. I'm going to make myself some fabric. Go for it, right? Personal care items. Now, we have aloe vera occurring naturally in the Caribbean. Lots of aloe vera. You know what the ingredients in aloe vera gel? Aloe vera and sometimes alcohol. I mean, you can't get any better than that, right? You can't get any better than that. The thing is the process. The process. What else is there around you that you can look at and say, oh my goodness, I had never thought that that could actually do something for me, right? Even if vines, for instance, we see people weaving lots of beautiful baskets, but many times those baskets are woven from vines that are considered weeds. They just want to get rid of it, and we're importing them and selling them in a SAS. Well, I heard they call SAS Macy's now. They sell them in at SAS for 18, 20, $25, and you're buying a basket that probably costs $2 to make, right? Um, so personal care items, shampoo, conditioner, soaps, body scrubs. I'm actually interested in working with a group of people in growing loofahs because loofahs are grown like cucumbers, right, on Marrow. And there's so many things that you can make with loofahs, and we can work together with people who are soap makers and so on to actually have loofah sponges available for the local and regional market. So if you're interested in loofahs, please comment in the comment section below. So medicines and nutraceuticals. You look in this supermarket fridge and you see people have all kind of tonics and blood this and blood that, and you see this sea moss and this thing for men. Ha! There's no end to what you could possibly do in the Caribbean, because if you ask any culture in any of these Caribbean islands what the men say, they'll tell you. They'll tell you whether or not it works. That's another step in the process. You can make your product and take it to the National Standards Institute and say, please test this for me. Tell me if it could really make a man stand, stand up. Amen. And if they prove that it can, then good for you. But until then, please don't put it on the label that it can do anything, because then you would be putting yourself at risk for a lawsuit. And that's very important, not to make any medicinal claims until you have verified with medicine that it actually does what it does. Other than that, let people take it for what they think it is. You put, this is my stamina drink. Whether or not you think that it will give you stamina, just don't put boost your body's natural vitality. Because from the moment you go down that lane, you're telling people, if you don't get boosted, you could sue me. So let's just hold back on that until you're able to get your certification from a local or international lab. Tools. Now look, if you got a lot of wild bush growing in your yard and the stems get this big, and you don't know what to do with it, you can think of so many ways that you can chip up that wood, make wood chips for people to use as mulch. I mean, just let your brain go, what could I possibly do with this? I'm tired of seeing people importing bush that they sprayed with spray paint, and they're selling it at Soaring World for $5, $7 a bundle. Like, honestly, we got bush growing all the way in St. Andrew, St. Joseph, and St. John. They just can go and dry the bush and spray it with spray paint, and we don't need to spend our foreign currency to get that, right? Packaging. You can make your strings, you can make whatever you want to do, weave whatever you want to make something different. And equipment. You may not think of it, but they're naturally occurring woods, bark, tools that you can use. You can carve reels out of wood. Reels. You can carve reels out of wood. And you can make some really cool ornaments, whatever it is your mind could think of, out of naturally occurring products. And then finally, agricultural products, fertilizers, pesticides, out of neem, um, compost mix, trellises out of sticks that are growing from the bushes while growing on your land. Chop those things, dry them out, and you can actually form trellises for people to grow their growing vines, their beans on. And then there's no end to what you can open up your mind to where it comes to the things that are growing around you or the things that you intentionally grow. For me, it has been 3 years of excitement because, like I said, I started with a see-through plastic bag and a paper slip down inside. And now I feel proud that I can have boxes and bottles and sealed pouches and capsules. It makes me feel as though starting small isn't such a bad thing. Sometimes you feel like everybody's gone ahead of you with the ideas, or somebody come with the same idea as you and move on so fast and you start to feel sad, well, because they didn't have this or didn't have that. Don't think about what other people are doing. Think about your process. Get started. And if you need help, there's Victory Gardens there that can help you. You could also join the Sustainable Caribbean Grassroots Business Alliance. We're really trying our very best to pull people who are interested in the sustainability of the Caribbean come together to form our own supply chain so we can keep our foreign reserves. And so with that, I've come to the end of my presentation. I felt like I really raced through it. If you have any questions, please put them below. Put them in the comments, and we'll try to answer as many of them as possible in the next 20 minutes. Amelia?
Thank you, Nichole, for that very informative session and also very encouraging as well. And it's great to see how you have grown over these 3 years, and we wish you every continued success. So we've now moved over to the Q&A session part of the presentation, and thus far we have just a couple questions from Allison Applewhite, and I would invite everyone, if they wish to, you can turn on your videos so that Nichole can see who's asking the questions if you wish.
Yeah, that would help.
Yes, and that would help. That would be great. So our first question from Allison is, can we grow hemp in Barbados? Is it not of the cannabis family?
Well, it is a cousin to the cannabis plant. No, I should say hemp in and of itself is not illegal. The challenge that you will have is your nosy neighbors who see it growing and assume that it is marijuana. So you may have to be the kind of friendly neighbor who will tell people, well, you know what, I'm not breaking the law here. This is not marijuana. Come see for yourself. And they may not believe you because it will still have a very strong smell. So you may want to do something like call the police in your area and say to them, listen, this is what I'm doing. I'm only doing it for 5 birthday. Nobody's smoking nothing. And then let them tell you, listen, it ain't worth it. Let them be the ones to say, it ain't worth the headache, because people can keep calling us or we can keep coming because, right? So I'd say, or call BADMC and say to them, this is what I would like to do. Some of us have hemp seeds, but we haven't made any use of them in that regard because you try to avoid, you want to live at peace with all men.
Yeah. Okay, and the second question we have from Allison is, how resilient is rabbit fur to the rigors of pillow use?
Well, I've never slept on a rabbit fur pillow before, to be honest with you.
No.
But I believe that because of its density, it may be similar to what you would get with a down feather pillow. But then I would say do as much research as you can, like go on YouTube and see what people are doing with theirs. And perhaps you get a much better answer than I would. But I would assume, as it's a natural fiber, it's not going to go anywhere. It may get matted eventually over time, and you may need to open it up and fluff it back out. But like I said before, check YouTube and see what people are doing.
Okay, that's excellent. And we don't have any other questions, but I would have a question for you in terms of, can you explain to the group, the process that you would have gone through to get your product from, you started out in simpler packaging and then you now have a more, a more refined packaging. So what was that process like, and what were the challenges that you would have experienced, and what were the agencies you would have engaged with? Yeah.
All right. Well, let me grab examples right quick so you can see. Okay. Right here. So don't feel like I'm going here. All right. Like I said before, the biggest headache was packaging. I spent quite a few months actually developing the blends for the teas, which is the real product, the teas. But then people kind of have an idea of what teas should look like, what the packaging should look like. and they were not very confident. So, like I said, I started out with a plastic bag, like the tamarind ball plastic bag. And then I went up to a bag like this, which is a little sturdier, and you could actually seal it much sturdier. And I had a bigger label, quite like this. And I put my tea bags in there. Now, people were happy to buy this over the original one, but it still didn't hit the mark because then no supermarket would buy this. Like, nobody would put that in their shop, right? And so I had to take the chance to get a box. And it was in a very sad place. I just sat at the computer and I said, I'm not the world's best designer and I can't pay anybody right now to design a box for me, but I'm going to try. And so I sat on the computer and I designed my first box. I think this I think is one of the very first ones I designed. The avocado leaf. It's actually printed on one plain piece of paper, and I print them out, cut them out, and actually started to cut and fold. And I cut and folded and cut and folded and cut and folded until I got a box. And when I got this box, I felt so happy because it took me from what I would say like a poor Reiki plastic bag. But I felt like my plastic bag was poor Reiki because other people felt like it was poor Reiki. I wasn't designing the product for me. And while I knew what was inside was excellent, I couldn't convince anybody of that. So the package really made the difference. But the package had to take time to evolve and to grow. I found a company, I think it's industry, that sells these plain white little boxes that are so versatile. You can use this for anything. And instead of selling my hair tea in this plastic, I just put the same label and stuck it on the box. And that somehow, let me hold it back up. Somehow you prefer the box, right? And so for people who may be selling cakes, muffins, whatever the case may be, in your mind, you want to be seen on the same level as those who are established. And you know you're going to have to output the money. But in the meantime, they said taking time is not laziness. If people come to know that your product is great in a bag, eventually, when you get the box, you will have already built up loyal customers. And that's really what you want. We go into the hair store, the supermarket, whatever, and sometimes you grab a product off the shelf, not thinking your oats, your rice, your whatever, plain plastic bags with a thing on the top. Nobody thinks, oh, this rice popped down because it's in a plastic bag, right? But somehow we have trained ourselves that in order for something to be good, it has to be in the most expensive packaging. And so I've had to train myself off of that and be willing now to support other entrepreneurs who may not have the highest end, but whose products are just as good, taste just as good, or do just as good a job. For people who are into soap making, for example, the reality is that fancy shaped soaps are nice for decoration. But because people have become used to bars of soap, the recommendation is to make your soap as close to a conventional bar shape as possible so that people can think of it the same way they will think of Lux or Pears soap or whatever else. Although Pears has a different shape, you can tell it's still close to that conventional shape. Now, when you go with this fancy thing that look like cupcakes and look like cake and fruit or whatever, people buy it and put it as a decoration, but that decoration is going to stay there for 10 years. They're not coming back for another bar soap because they're not bathing with it, right? So the thing is, in your process, to be as practical as possible, you want to make money, you want to reach people, you have to meet somewhere, and it's not the middle, closest to what your customer wants without compromising your values. And I think for me, my process took long because I tried to change so many times to get to what the customer wants. When maybe I could have made 2 or 3 jumps, I may have made maybe about 10 or 11. But I grew in the process, and I wouldn't really change it for anyone. I hope I've answered your question.
You have. Thank you very much. And in relation to your herbal teas, for example, at what point did you take a look at the garden that you would have started and say, okay, I have enough plants here or to be able to make a herbal tea and provide that product consistently, or have you expanded beyond your current garden at home?
All right, great question. So I went and studied. I did a youth agriculture incubator program, which taught us how to take crops and make products. And one of the courses within that program was tea making. When I saw how much tea was necessary to go into one tea bag, I was ecstatic because I knew that it would not take much for me to make one box of tea. And I thought to myself, well, if I only got 5 boxes of tea sold per week, at least I would be starting, right? I'm not selling a container load to anybody, right? And so the few plants that I had in my garden were more than enough for me to make of 6 packages of tea per week, because you make sure that you have a mature plant, and this is what you'll do. You say to yourself, this plant has 6 months, 8 months, 1 year life cycle. So after you've planted your first set of plants, let's say in January, you know that by March, April, you should be planting a new set so that you have what they will call succession of plants. Then you will never run out of your main ingredient. So let's say that you're going to make tomato sauce. Please, somebody make some tomato sauce. You want that you constantly have tomato plants coming up at different stages and phases of growth so that you never not have tomatoes, if you understand. So you don't need to have 2 acres of land to say, oh God, oh, I got enough acres of land to make tomato sauce. Eventually, if you get a great supermarket deal and they order 6 cases of tomato sauce from you and the case gone in 24 bottles, you're telling yourself, oh, I got 100 or something. Like, where am I going to get all those tomatoes from? Then, instead of saying you have to grow all your own tomatoes, find other people who are growing tomatoes and work together with them so everybody benefits. You will take that burden of growing the tomatoes off of you. That shows that you've grown. So you're so big you can't worry about growing the tomatoes, or you pay somebody to grow those tomatoes for you so that you have time to focus on making sure that the product itself is great. Eventually, you can't focus on the product because you're focusing on the sales and marketing. You have to pay somebody to focus on the product for you. And that's how you see that you've grown. And in answer to your question, Amelia, I started out with life lots. So I had some returning nationals who were not in the island often and allowed me to use their backyards. And so I used their backyards for the first year. And then my husband, he was renting at a particular place at the time. And I used all around the property to grow plants. And then I used by my grandmother, then my godmother, and whoever is not using their space, I'm coming and taking over because I have something that I can do with it. And then it gives me an opportunity to build up bonds and relationships, to talk about my product, and to actually get people wanting to be a part of it. And having that number of people who are willing to try your product. A girlfriend of mine started making soap, especially for women down there, right? And so she thought, well, who am I going to trust to actually give this to that won't lock me? Who won't put me in court if anything goes wrong? Like, you have to have enough people who you can say to yourself, they're going to try it. And they love you. They'll still love you even if it tastes bad. And they're not going to stop speaking to you if it gives them a little belly hurt or whatever, you know what I mean? And so that community is important. If you look at those funding sites, GoFundMe or whatever, the first thing they ask you is how much money have you raised? And it's because they expect that your immediate community are the first people who are going to support you. And it's the same thing with your product. And so over time, I've been able to build up relationships with people and to make friends in my industry and in other industries that are associated to my supply chain, who would say, hey, Nichole, how are the things coming along? And if I say, oh, they're doing too good, they will give me an encouragement, right? And so that's what we need. Any more questions? Please ask questions.
Yes. We don't have any more questions from the audience at the moment,
Okay.
but the last question that I have for you is, where can we find your products?
Okay, so COVID caused me to pull back significantly. I can't just only blame COVID though, because I was having some personal challenges just a few months before that. So as before, I would retail products from at home. You could also get products from me from Free Range, which is at the bottom of Wilcox Hill, which is down behind the airport going into Chancery Lane. I, for the moment, don't have my products on the shelf at the Nichole's Baking Company outlet at the moment. And that's because I have decided to do a significant revamp of what it is that I am offering in that particular retail space. So for now, you can find me at home. Find my products down at Free Range at the bottom of Wilcox Hill. They've got some really good Bajan products for sale down there. And it may be a little bit of drive, but I mean, if you're going up that way anyways, just stop by. Or you can call me and we deliver if your order is $25 or more.
Thank you so much, Nichole, and thank you very much for an informative session today and for taking out to share with us your experience and what you have learned throughout your journey. And again, we wish you every success. So I would like to now turn it over to Miss Roberta Reed from Victory Gardens, who will tell us about a great project that is about to be launched soon. So Roberta, good evening. Thank you so much for joining. And I would turn it over to you.
Thanks, Amelia. So good afternoon to everyone. As Amelia said, this is a great opportunity. Victory Gardens is about to launch the 2020 Barbados Grow Challenge. In fact, this is the launch of the challenge. We are working with the NCC and Farm Finder for this program, and it's the first time that it's being done. And we are really targeting first-time growers. So if you have not started your garden yet, this is the opportunity for you to do so. You could go ahead, Amelia. So this challenge, as I mentioned, is for all those who have not started their gardens yet, but they are interested, you're interested in doing so. It's for an 8-week period. So we selected certain crops that we know would take that time to grow. So there's Chinese cabbage, cucumbers, okras, and lettuce. Those are the 4 crops that will be part of this challenge. The challenge really is for you to grow the longest crop within this 8-week period. So we have a number of prizes, gift vouchers from our sponsors, which I would like to give a plug for now: Carter's, Massey Garden Shop, Muddy Boots, Landmark Nurseries, and Nature Care. So this challenge is going to start, you can actually register from now. We have our Facebook page, Victory Gardens Caribbean. The Facebook page is already, has all the information on it. We'll have our promotional video there. You will see the registration form is there. There's a flyer there, so feel free to go and share. I'd also like to mention that children can enter the challenge once your parent signs you up on the registration form. Children can enter because we have a special prize for the youngest participant in this challenge as well. So it's a really good way to get the family involved. If you have children in front of a tablet, in front of the TV all day long, it's summertime, get them outside in the garden, get them interested in growing their own food. It starts from now. You could go, Amelia. So the challenge registration opens from today, but we need you to get in your registration, sign up on our Facebook page. It's very simple. The form will take you about a minute or 2, not even 2 minutes, just a minute to complete. You have until August 1st to complete that, so we will know how many persons are registered. I should say that we have a limit of 50 persons. So I want you to go, log on, and make sure that you are part of those 50. After 50, we cannot guarantee that we can take you into this first round. The challenge will then begin on August 8th, and because it's 8 weeks, it will go until September 30th. So we've made it very easy for you to get on board. You're going to be provided with free seedlings, and this is compliments of Farm Finder. They have been very gracious to us to provide us with some free seedlings. You'll get free tires if you need, because some people may not need that. You may have your own garden bed, that's fine. But if you do need tires, you can also get them. And we have Nature Farm Ranch as a partner as well. They will be delivering the seedlings and the tires if you need them as well. To help you go through this process, we have educational videos that have been produced, and you'll be seeing them weekly to help you go, to give you a little bit inspiration. If you have any questions, obviously you can put them on our Facebook page and we will respond. Next slide. So during this 8-week period, what we'll be asking you to do is to monitor your crops and to take a photograph every 2 weeks. We want to be able to see that you're actually growing. We believe that you'll be growing, but we want to be able to track it as well. We want you to put your photos on Facebook with your measurements. We're tracking, the judges will be tracking each week to make sure, monitoring the growth, because at the end of the day, the challenge is really for the longest crop. So at the end, when we have the last photo in, which will be on September 30th, we'll be looking at that final photo that you have submitted per crop. So you could actually do 3 crops, you could do 2, it's up to you. And you could enter for each of those crops, or you could enter for 1. It's really up to you. But we'll be looking at the longest crop grown based on the measurements. Let's go. So on September 30th, as I mentioned, this will be the final photo that we'll be looking at. Now, in the event that we have quite a few people with the same length of crop, we will be using the number of likes on Facebook for your photos to help break that tie. So we really encourage you to tell your friends, tell your family to go on Facebook, like your photos, and that could help you to get the edge over somebody else who could be vying for first place with you. So it's a really interesting competition. It is the first time we're launching it, and we're really excited, hopefully, that you can get on board with us. The Facebook page is pretty much ready with all the information that you would need to register. And yeah, all that's left really is for you to go and sign up. I'd like to once again thank all of our partners and our sponsors whom you can see here. They've been really supportive of this first time initiative. So we have to say a special thanks to everyone. So the prizes will be coming from these respective companies that sell garden supplies. So we are looking forward for you to get on board and to also be able to win some of these vouchers that are up for grabs. So if anyone has any questions, just message us on the page. We usually take quite a short time to respond. Thank you very much, Amelia.
Thank you very much, Roberta, for introducing us to that challenge. And I encourage all of you to sign up. It looks like it's going to be very exciting, very educational. And now to, just before we close off our third session again this evening, I would like to again remind you of the products that we, Victory Gardens Caribbean, offer. These include seedlings. These include seedlings, and also our grow boxes. So if you have some space or you want a more organized space to grow your various products, your various plants, we offer a series of grow boxes in various sizes. Feel free to WhatsApp us and order today, or you can also message us through our Facebook page. So now we we also, let me not forget, we also offer garden design and installation services. So if you have a space that you're not quite sure what to do with or how to transform it, or if you don't want to go through all of the hassle and you just want to be able to just water the plants and pick them and eat them, please take a look at our garden designs, message us, get some more information on how you can transform your lot into a beautiful, functional, and viable vegetable garden. So we have now come to the end of our third session, and it was a great and exciting session, very informative. And we thank you again for taking the time to join us. Again, I encourage you to check out Nichole's products, Naturindas, at Free Range in Gibbons in Christchurch, and also to sign up for the Let's Grow Challenge. Please check out the Facebook page for more information. So I would now bid you farewell. Thank you very much for joining us again, and we look forward to seeing you at our fourth session. Information on that will be posted on the Victory Gardens Facebook page. I encourage you to have a safe and enjoyable evening. Thank you so much, everyone, and take care until the next time. Goodbye.